listening to the PR Wind Down podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down. So welcome to our Thanksgiving podcast. We're going to be doing a bunch of grateful stories this week instead of horror stories, and we're starting off with a story from our very own Jenn McManus. Take it away, Jenn.
Okay, so this Thanksgiving, we have a lot more time than usual to reflect, and I was thinking about, one, how grateful I am for the virtual agencies that I get to work for, because it's made working this past year and remote schooling very, I wouldn't say manageable, but I'm grateful that I have had a chance to work and try and keep my kids sane at the same time. But in terms of client stories and work stories, I think when I left my last job, I had been there for 7 years, and you really start to look at how much of your life you spend with these people. So, I had coworkers, my coworkers, Rick and Joanna at my last agency. When we first started working together, Joanna and I both had babies, and Rick had a daughter who was in college, and he told us this story about how he went to visit his daughter at her semester abroad, and she was leading him all around, and met him at the airport, and brought her family around, and he said, she doesn't need me anymore. I did my job right. She knows what she's doing. And of course, Joanna and I have babies, so we start to cry. And then 7 years later, Rick's daughter was getting engaged, and my baby was 8 and Joanna's baby was 7. And I was just like immensely grateful that I had ups and downs with this group of people. Those are my two. There's so many more, but I could probably take up this whole podcast of grateful stories, and I'm grumpy, so I'll let you move on.
Thank you so much, Jenn. That's so awesome.
It's a good story of coworker camaraderie outside of just the workplace. For me, it's rarer than it looks like on TV. I feel like on TV in the movies, it's like everybody works together and they go out and they, get married and all that. And I've had a lot of jobs, and I've only had a few times where I've really actually had that kind of thing happen. So I think it's pretty remarkable.
Who's next? Me, Laura, Veronica? Who wants to go? All right, I'll do it. Here I go. Okay, so I actually wrote mine out because I just didn't want to have to do it on the fly and remember all the details. So this story is dedicated to Jeff White in Des Moines, Iowa. No, we're not related, even though we have the same last name, not related. Jeff was my very first PR boss, and he went on a limb and hired me as a technical writer on the PR team at Two Rivers Marketing Group back when I was just a reporter at the Des Moines Register. I wanted to make the switch to PR, and he was gracious enough to give me a landing pad. So he was an amazing boss. He believed in me. He cultivated my talent as a writer. He did a fantastic job of both giving me structure and also giving me free reign to come up with creative ways to do my job, which I really appreciated. It was like a breath of fresh air, especially after having been really unhappy as a crime reporter. I was having all kinds of nightmares. It was like heart-wrenching, and it was very refreshing to just be writing stories with less drama and heartache, and also a job with more stability, with more pay, and I really needed both at the time. So Jeff was a really smart guy. He had come up with this incredible share of voice scorecard, and this was, keep in mind, long before the days of digital solutions to this, like Cision has now, and it was much more sophisticated than any system I've seen since, if you can believe that. So he was using this to gauge how much coverage our clients were getting versus the competition, and keeping, very adamant track of it. And he was really understanding how to convert each client's business and marketing goals into tangible PR tactics, and then also the corresponding results. Funny enough, since we were in Iowa, most of our clients were really big, successful construction companies like Bobcat, Ingersoll Rand, Vermeer, McCormick, Rental Service Corp, like all of these big, the who's who of construction. And even though I knew absolutely nothing about construction, I really learned quickly from him and found the process of figuring out the industry and then writing about all of its complexities and nuances really fascinating. So I don't know I don't know how to say exactly how grateful I am for Jeff, but what I really didn't know at the time, which you often don't until later in life, is that Jeff had really built one of the most successful, efficient, functional, kind, effective, and professional PR programs in the nation, at least that I've seen so far. And I didn't fully appreciate it. You know, I didn't get how brilliant he was or how stellar that team was. And it wasn't even until I moved to New York City and worked for much bigger agencies who were only a fraction as buttoned up as the PR team at Two Rivers had been. So I will be forever grateful to Jeff for taking a chance on me, showing me the PR ropes, and being the very best PR boss as a young professional that I could ever hope to have. That's my gratitude towards Jeff White and Two Rivers Marketing, both.
I love those sort of stories where it's the people that take a chance on you and then your career just sort of pivots. I mean, I know I've had, since I've had a lot of them internally, but then since I've been working on my own, there's been a couple people that are like, can you, do you know how to do this? It's like, well, I mean, I could learn it. And then they just give you a chance and then you learn something new. I feel like there's a lot of those.
Yeah. No, and I feel like I keep trying to pay it forward by finding people that I want to take a chance on. And I know that they'll ideally someday be as grateful to me as I was to, to Jeff White for doing that for
So
me.
now I know why I said you were like Dave, the movie Dave. Get everybody a job. Now I know why. Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
I was quite a mess at the time that Jeff hired me. I didn't show it to him, right? But so it wasn't like I was showing up as a hot mess, but I was not in a good place personally. So having somebody that was really kind and professional and, everything was exactly what I needed it to be at that moment in time. And it just set me on a trajectory. And then, of course, it helped me get a job in New York, which I left Two Rivers and in the dust, thinking, oh, I'm off to bigger and better and brighter pastures, which of course in some ways was true and in some ways was not true even remotely. Yeah. So
yeah.
I had to find out all that for myself, but that's how it goes when you're in your 20s, right?
Yeah, you have to do it, because if you didn't do it, you'd always be saying, what if I did that? And now
right.
You know.
Yep. I'm even more grateful to Jeff than I would if I'd stayed there my whole career. So.
Right, because you know how bad it can be, and how good and like amazing of a boss he was. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, who's next? Laura, Veronica, who wants to do this? How about Veronica? Do you want to pop on?
Okay, I did jot mine down too, so I'll kick it off into my story of a moment that I'm pretty grateful for. So at the time this story happened, I was working as an unpaid intern in this entry-level PR position. And at the time, it was kind of a turning point in my life. I had worked 3 jobs the year before to save up for this big career transition, and those savings were running out. I was striking out on these entry-level applications. So I was looking at this internship thinking, I am either going to land this full-time career job, or it's going to be back to, different types of jobs and secretary type work and that sort of thing. So as an intern at this internship that I finally did take, I was in this very structured role. My duties consisted of a lot of internal correspondence, and every single thing I said had to be checked and signed off on and proofread. It was a pretty strict role in that way. So I was kind of feeling this sense of imposter syndrome at the time. And I was feeling like I was going to find myself looking for work again. I was feeling really dejected about the whole thing. And I just wasn't feeling like I was going to cut it in this career. I think that's familiar to the feeling that a lot of young graduates have. But at the time, I was like, I fell in love with PR as an undergrad. I was in this really cool hands-on PR program in college. And now I was like working my butt off to try to get in the door and actually do it. So at the time that I was an intern at this place, I had one manager, and she was this total media rock star. She kind of kept to herself. She was really aloof, and she had like a dry sense of humor, but she was this total badass when it came to media relations. And I was like terrified of her. She was totally killing it, but I was like so afraid of her. So at one point or another, she gave me a research project to do, and it was just a small media list for a product launch, something really basic. And I don't even remember what the product was, but I do remember that I turned it into her. And as I turned it in, I knew the last media list I had worked on was like a total flop. So I was waiting for similar feedback, like, this is useless. You know, how many hours did you waste on this thing? And after she reviewed it, she called me over to her desk. So I'm like petrified. And I went over to her desk and I got there and she's like, okay, this looks great. Do you want to pitch it now? And I was like, floored. I had never even sent an external email in this role. I was like, wow, are you sure? And she was like, yeah, I trust you. Wouldn't give this to you if I didn't. And it was just that moment of hearing this little bit of encouragement from somebody that I kind of feared but definitely admired. And it was like exactly what I needed in that moment to feel like, okay, I can do this. So I felt really empowered by it. And eventually she went on to be a little bit more of a mentor to me and gave me some more robust writing assignments and helped me to make some connections to land different roles in the future. But it was that first moment of just hearing somebody say, you're capable, you can do this. Oh, wow, I'm not on my way out, you know, and it really meant a lot to me at the time.
That's great. And you turned into a media relations dynamo yourself.
Thank you.
I mean, it's stuff like that the dominoes, I don't want to say fall, that sounds negative, but you know, it's like it all connects. So because of that, you're probably where you are now.
Yeah, and it was definitely a nice kind of stepping stone from that feeling that you're floundering to realizing, you know, if you take charge and you're capable and you prove that you can do good work, then you get the opportunity to kind of breathe a little bit and realize it's gonna be okay.
I think also, like, for the person that was your mentor, it's always important for people to recognize that just because people are new and incompetent are two different things. And, you know, giving people the freedom to sort of learn and grow has always been, like, as a manager, has been important to me, but also, like, as an employee, nobody wants to be micromanaged. So giving people enough rope so that they can be successful, but not so much rope that they're floundering, I think is always important.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's funny because that's kind of the same theme of my story as well, right? Structure, but still giving me a chance to learn how to do it and figure it out and kind of make the role my own.
So I guess it's me. So I have two stories and one is not work related, but there's two things that I am so grateful to my mother / my parents for. And one of those stories has to do with my career. Now, you know, when you're whatever, I had just graduated college, so I was 21 or 22 years old, and I had no job. My dad literally was like, go get a job with health insurance today, the day after I graduated college. Everybody else was going to Europe at the time, like, because Eastern Europe had just started to really open up to, you know, the West. So all my friends are going to teach English in, you know, Czechoslovakia or whatever. And my dad's like, I don't give a shit, like, get in the car, go home and get a job with health insurance. And I was like, oh my God, like, nobody's going to give me a job with health insurance. Like, I had, you know, by the hour jobs, and now suddenly I'm going to have some career job. So I did get a job. I can't even tell you really what the job was or what the company was. It wasn't PR. And I got it by sending letters to the help wanted ads in the New York Times, like literally, you know, typing a letter and mailing it in. And so the first job that I got offered, I was like, I'll take it. So I took it, and it was some dumb job that I can't to this day tell you what it was. But I had been interviewing months before that. I think I probably even went in and interviewed for this job like on a spring break when I was a senior, home for the week or whatever. And it was a job that they hadn't gotten back to me. And so I was like, well, I guess it's just not going to happen because here I am. And I think it was like September, and I've gone the whole summer without a job, and oh, well, I'm taking this job. So I took it. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, the job I had interviewed for called me, and they were like, we'd like to offer you the job. And I was like, I just started this new job. I can't quit a job I just started and go to this other job. I felt terrible, and I was like, there's no way I can do it, even though I don't even know what I'm doing at this job. I have no idea what this is. I can't quit it. And I was living at home because not only did I leave college the day after, but I moved back home. And I'm living at home in New Jersey, and I tell my parents this. I was like, well, I can't take, the job because I started the new one. And they were both like, take the job that you just got offered. Quit the job you took and take the other job. And I was like, but they'll be mad at me. It's horrible. I promised them I'd do this job. I took this job. I just started. I can't quit now. I was petrified. I felt terrible. And they were unwavering in their recommendation. And thank God I listened to them. I usually listen to my parents, but in this case, I might not have. And thank God I listened to them. I did quit the job that I don't even think the company exists. And I took the other job, which was with the Division of Consumer Affairs of the state of New Jersey in the press office. I wasn't like, oh, I have to get a PR job. I just had to get a job. So this was not only the beginning of my PR career, but because specifically, and I'll link it back to one of our first podcasts, that job, I met Paul Rosengren, who we interviewed, who then recommended me to the job where I worked for Senator Bill Bradley, which was the greatest job I've ever had in my life. It would have never happened had I not listened to my lovely parents and the path that they set me on. I went from 0 to 60. I would not be here with you fine people had I probably not listened to them.
Oh, I like that story.
Me too, Laura. I think we got parallel lives.
Yeah.
Like graduating and you got to have health insurance and you're back in New Jersey in your parents' house. Yeah.
I lived there for a long time.
Yeah, I had a degree in journalism and creative writing, and I could not get I could have gotten a job at a newspaper, but my parents were like, you got to make some money, which newspapers are not really what you're doing. And I was like, well, I'll just, I'll take a job until I write my book, and then I'm just going to go, open up a bookshop or whatever. And my mother got me into an interview with the PR department at Lucent, which was my first job. And that's how I got started in PR. Probably about the first decade, I was like, this is just a temporary thing. But yeah, I've always been sort of grateful that my parents pushed in that direction.
Well, so it's funny what you say, because if I take a step back, the interview with the job at the state of New Jersey, my mother got me that interview too. So my dad he was so anti-nepotism, and my mother was like, whatever, through him, I'm going to help you get a job, because he had been the mayor of the town that I grew up in for many years. But the guy who was like the attorney for the town when my dad was the mayor went on to be governor of New Jersey. Governor Florio was his lawyer. My mother's like, forget, like, your father's crazy, forget it. And she called him or wrote him a letter and was like, can you find a job for my daughter in the state of New Jersey? Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny, Jen, that you got pushed by your parents to be more practical as well, because I wanted to be a creative writer. I wanted to be a screenplay writer. And I wanted to go to the University of Iowa, and I wanted to study, at the world's best writing program and all of that. My parents said, it's fine and dandy if you want to be a writer, but let's get you a degree in something practical where you get to be a writer. So they kind of shoved me into the journalism department at Iowa State instead.
Yeah, that's how I got into journalism school. Same story.
My parents were like, yeah, well, let's make sure that you can support yourself and then you can write on the side. And at the time I thought they didn't believe in me, but then I realized, no, my parents are just really smart.
Well, when we retire, we can go to the Iowa Writers Program together.
100%. 100%.
I'd like to say that my mom was so mad at me for my crazy major. She was so mad.
Was that a mistake?
No, I mean, American culture, that's my jam. It was politics and society of American culture. And everybody made fun of me for my major. Meanwhile, like, how much more perfect than what I, did for a living. What about you, Veronica?
It's funny because my parents were actually kind of the opposite. I was toying with the idea of going to art college and that sort of thing, and going through this kind of process of I like to write, I like to create, I like to paint, and I pushed myself towards something a little bit more practical. I was like, well, wait a minute, you're paying for school, you can't go to art college, you need to pay it off afterwards. My parents were just excited I was going at all to college, so I kind of pushed myself towards something more practical, which is bizarre, but I'm happy that I did.
Yeah, and for our listeners who don't know, Veronica, who's on camera now and usually is not, is our producer of the podcast. She's always the one behind the scenes, secretly, pulling the levers and knobs and doing the editing and putting it out and promoting it. So,
and funny that that's a creative endeavor too. When I was like,
oh yeah,
stay away from the creative stuff, and there you go.
But it's a practical way of being creative, and there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. I like our family roundtable Thanksgiving dinner podcast.
I can't tell you the other thing I'm grateful to my mother for.
Well, now you left us hanging.
Sometimes you should listen to your mother, kids.
It's true.
More often than not, as it turns out, I think.
My mother would always be like, someday you're going to end up with a daughter just like you. And I have.
I laugh at my friends with kids. I'm like, my kid, I'm like, oh my God, you got what you deserved. I was like, I just opted out of that. I can't imagine.
So funny. Aw. Awesome. Well, Jen, we can let you get back to your Hellraisers.
All right, sounds good. Well, happy Thanksgiving, guys, and thank you.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. You're such an asset to the team.
All right, bye.
Bye. So thank you, Veronica, so much for sharing your story and for coming on camera and sharing your beautiful face. And we'll let you go back to into hiding.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So Laura, did you see about Progressive's turkey insurance and other Thanksgiving marketing stunts?
No, I didn't see that.
It's the week's
I do see it.
Winners, losers, and newsmakers. All right.
I think we should probably acknowledge that we're reading out of Ad Age.
We should, yes. Thank you, Ad Age, for the compilation.
Yeah.
And then what's bird protection?
For those wannabe chefs tackling, a turkey dinner this Thanksgiving, for the first time, Progressive Insurance has your back. The insurer has partnered with Whole Foods Market on a Thanksgiving turkey protection plan, which offers insurance for dinner disasters with a $35 Whole Foods gift card. Progressive is airing a spot in support of the policy. Other brands are also anticipating Thanksgiving fails. In Manhattan, people who buy Campbell's Soup Co. products ahead of the holiday to prepare side dishes can sign up for dinner insurance. If the dish doesn't come out right, they submit a photo on Thanksgiving and Campbell will deliver a gourmet replacement made in one of the company's ghost kitchens in time for dinner. I should have done that. I totally just screw up the whole dinner. I just should have done that all over the place and get a big free fantastic catered meal. If I only knew.
That is so clever. I really
That's
like
funny.
that campaign. It's very smart. It's really timely too, right? Because how many of us are doing our Thanksgiving dinners and not relying on mom and dad if we're not traveling?
Right.
Thankfully, I'm used to doing my own Thanksgiving dinner with John. If I weren't, it'd be a little bit scary. It's a lot to take on.
Thankfully, I don't cook and my dad doesn't really either. So he ordered a catered meal that we're picking up at 1.
Aw, I guess you still could submit that. You could make some things that they'll look horrible and send it in for
That's
insurance.
funny.
I wonder how many people are really gonna take advantage of it. That's what would be really funny.
Right. Imagine if they get overrun.
That would be another good story. Then I also see Thanks Nuggets. Purdue cooked up a fix for this year's small Thanksgiving dinner that eliminates the need to buy a whole turkey. It's Turkey Thanks Nuggets. They come in 2 varieties, breast meat nuggets shaped like turkeys and dark meat and cranberry nuggets shaped like drumsticks. Purdue is selling 100 bags of Thanks Nuggets on its site for $19.20 each, amounts that honor the brand's 100th anniversary. So forget the hours, this is a quote, forget the hours of prep, the brining, the roasting, the mountain of dishes, the fancy place settings. This year's all about having a lazy giving, said Tracy Hollister, the VP of Marketing from the Premium Prepared Foods at Purdue. And to spice up the nuggets, there's a touchless Cholula dispenser, which the hot sauce brand is promoting with Simple Human. That's clever.
But wait,
there's more.
Budweiser is selling its first ever Bud Can turkey stand that is designed to hold an open Bud Tallboy can that can seep beer flavor into the turkey. And here's something to combat the sleep-inducing, how do you say that word? Tryptophan in turkey.
Tryptophan.
Baste it with Mountain Dew. The
Ugh.
soda brand is out with a cookbook, yes, you heard that right, whose recipes include a Mountain Dew live wire brined turkey, named for the orange flavor version of the soda that is packed with 77 grams of sugar per serving. Wow, I should eat that, drink it, whatever. Other stomach-turning recipes include Mountain Dew infused pickles and Mountain Dew cherry and cranberry pomegranate fruitcake. Let's hope Tums has a Thanksgiving promotion coming soon.
Oh my God, that's disgusting. I see Gin Cycle. What's that? Oh, Hendrix. Do you see that?
Yeah.
A new exercise bike out? What? Move over Peloton. Hendrix Gin has a new exercise bike out. The Hendrix High Wheel is decidedly old-fashioned. Instead of an electric video screen, it comes with a manual, quote, inviting you to exercise your imagination as well as your body.
Sure.
In our view, modern exercise devices are demanding and intrusive, seeking to know your heart rate, your VO2 max, and then sharing your fitness level with others. We take a more laissez-faire approach. Choose a good novel, stimulate your mind, and pedal away at your leisure. Yes, it's real. Whoa, this is great. But the brand only made 3 of them at a price of $24.93.11. And as of Friday, none were available. Okay, now that I'm looking at this is so cute. Did you see this crazy bike in the picture?
Yeah, it's like one of those old-fashioned with the giant wheel in the front.
That is really cool.
Yes, but like, look at the guy in his giant living room with, 20-foot ceilings.
I mean, it's a statement piece for somebody who's got a lot of spending money.
Yeah. You want to hear about the number of the week?
Yeah, I don't know why, but try
We'll
me.
see.
Tried it.
$21.7 billion. That's the number of the week. Why? It's the amount spent online in the first 10 days of November.
Holy cow.
According to Adobe Digital Insights, which defined that period as the first 10 days of the holiday shopping season. That is up 21% year over year from last year. And if the government doles out another round of stimulus checks, Adobe expects consumers to spend an additional $11 billion online. So instead of like paying your taxes or your bills, you buy more crap online if you get a stimulus check. Is that what that's?
That's what they're hoping. Those are some very clever Thanksgiving themed promotions.
Indeed, they are, April.
What's your favorite?
It's disgusting, but I think it's kind of funny, the Mountain Dew brined turkey.
It's so gross. I wonder if anybody's actually going to do that.
I don't know. There's the fried turkey thing. I've never had it. And then there's the turducken.
What's the turducken?
It's a turkey, chicken, and duck.
Ugh.
Like all Frankenstein together.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah, people just get a little crazy.
Yeah, I have had a fried bird before.
I mean, fried anything is good. Fried shoe.
I probably didn't eat the fried part though, so it probably wasn't exactly any different for me.
Oh, right.
I think that would gross me out. I don't eat skin. Ugh.
Skin. It's so Silence of the Lambs.
I can barely eat meat as it is. I don't eat pork or beef, but I eat poultry, but eating skin, ugh.
Eating the skin you're in?
No.
I eat meat of all stripes.
All right. Thank you for tuning in for our Thanksgiving special of the PR Wind Down podcast.
Many thanks to our guests, Jenn and Veronica, for joining us today. It was great to see some faces from the team at our virtual table this week.
It was. We're so grateful to our listening audience for being here this week and every week. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating so we can continue to grow our listener community.
And remember, if you have an anonymous PR horror story, send it our way at the email address below. Next week, we'll be back to the usual structure of scary career stories.
We can't wait to wind down with you again next week.
Woohoo!